Hi there, and welcome to my first ever tier list video on YouTube. This is gonna be a tier list made for I version of JO. JO being a very popular template right now that's pretty much played by everyone, and I version came with a lot of changes that almost changed the game entirely in the first place, and then it also balanced the towns used in the game quite a bit. I mean, the disparity between towns definitely went down a lot. So I would like to start off, first of all, castle was there, so that's fine. First of all, I would like to start off by saying that this is my first video about tier lists. It's going to be a part 1 as well, and part 2 is going to have all the heroes in JO, so keep an eye on that. It's going to be quite fun. And also, this is my personal opinion. It doesn't have to mean that it's like the best towns used. I'm around 800 rating right now in JO. I have played every single town that I'm going to talk about today, and I could say with certainty that my decisions are very well experienced, at least, right? But it's my personal opinion. If you have a different kind of tier list, let me know in the comments below. I would actually be really curious to see what you guys think about where these towns should be placed, how well they do against others, and so on. This is gonna be, I hope, as detailed as I can make it, and yeah, if I miss anything, feel free to let me know in the comments below. Anyway, first of all, let's get started with Castle here. Castle, at least in the previous versions, used to be by far, by a mile away, the best town you could go for. It was like above S tier even, and it was just not even close to any other towns. I mean, the second towns were probably Fortress or Stronghold, and honestly, even against those towns, the trades for Castle would go up to like 8k or 9k even. I've seen that before. So, Castle being one of the best towns in previous versions, in I version actually went down quite a bit. First of all, with less Crusader boxes and less Swordsman boxes, now they're limited to 2 each. Catherine fell out of favor. She's not like the best hero to go for. Actually, Caitlyn right now is probably the best hero for Castle because she has intelligence, and on top of that, Castle also lost its stables advantage, which was what made Castle extremely strong, because before you would always stable up around week 2, and week 3 you try to go either into desert or bunker, then desert, and so on. However, because of the changes that happened to the I version, your opponent now starts with a castle town, with a fort town in the castle town. Sorry, it doesn't start with the town, he still has to find it, but having that fort from the very beginning means that you just find a castle town in your biome, then you can actually build stables. And while you, as playing Castle, still have the advantage of a few days there by starting with it, it's not as big anymore, because almost all the time your opponent will have that stables before like 1 to 3, 1 to 5, especially with full control early on. Therefore, Castle actually went from S tier, I would say somewhere to around B tier. I have had a lot of games so far, and I've played every single town here in JO version so far. And I could say, honestly, that Castle, unless it high rolls very, very big time, it's not consistent right now. You can literally get like 200 pikemen and like a few marksmen or like 1 or 2 griffin boxes and nothing else. Then your opponent is gonna run around with hundreds, if not more, of like tier 4, tier 5 units on separate towns with full control, with stables, and then you just have nothing to do. However, there is one thing that still makes Castle really strong. If it wasn't for that, I would actually still leave it in B tier. But there is one thing, just one thing, that makes Castle extremely strong right now, and that is Archangels. Archangels with Clone actually are extremely overpowered. And it's almost impossible to win against, because there's nothing you can do, especially if the opponent has Ogre Fist with Archangels. There is nothing you can physically do to kill the Archangel stack before they either get sacrificed or they clone and res themselves. Therefore, because of that, Castle is probably going to be in A tier, just if you can get to that late game scenario, because in that case you are most likely going to win. However, if the fight is going to be in week 3 or week 4, I would say almost every single other town here might actually win against Castle in this certain scenario in this version of the game. Now, that being gone, I mean, Castle will probably be like end of A tier here. That being gone, Conflux. Conflux now is one of the best towns in this version by far, honestly. Like, Conflux has, first of all, elementals. Elementals have basic immunities. They have some sort of talents, like all of them have different immunities to spells. For instance, you have magma elementals that are immune to chain lightning, and the way you would combat this in previous versions was having a black orb. Having a black orb was almost making Conflux irrelevant, right? Like, Conflux was like C tier maybe at best, maybe B tier in previous versions, but now because of those immunities, especially because you can go into magic elementals, and then without a black orb at all, those magic elementals are literally gonna be immortal almost. I mean, they don't take retal, they don't take any damage from spells, and especially if you fight early on, Conflux almost always wins in this case. Because there's not much you can do against it, you just summon elementals and you win almost every game. However, Conflux does have a slight disadvantage when it comes to heroes and mana. I mean, they have a lot of mages, but they don't actually have a single mage hero with intelligence, which can be very relevant in the late games. So, while it's going to be S tier in this version, it's not the best town still, by far. And yeah, I would say next one is going to be Cove. Cove right now has probably the best hero in the game, which is Eovasius. I mean, the clone, the expert clone being on 2 units instead of 1 makes it extremely potent. You have Nyxes that are super strong early on. You have even better like Nyxes late game. If you especially get like all 6 dwellings, then you have both towns double building from like week 1. You're going to have over 100 Nyxes easily every game here. And because spells are not as strong anymore, and because Berserk is not really a thing, like that was the only way you could deal with Nyxes before. Now, however, as I said, Nyxes are almost immortal, and yeah, you can do a lot of things with them. But it's not quite S tier. Like, while it has one of the best heroes in the game, I would say that they don't have the best tempo, sadly. Like, Cove is usually something around week 3, you wanna do a Utopia, or you want to do, I don't know, you used to do a bunker before on week 3, especially with Eovasius, or maybe with Velor with some bird boxes, but overall, their boxes are very well defended, their boxes are not amazing. I mean, unless you get a lot of either like Sea Dogs or bird boxes, Sea Witches are not that great, they don't really help you in Utopias too much, so you kind of have to wait for that Nyx income. And right now this entire template is heavily based on tempo, which means that if you don't have that very high tempo from the beginning, you might lose the game, simple as that. However, Cove, as I said, because they probably have the best hero, or at least one of the best heroes in my opinion, which is Eovasius right now, with intelligence, with expert clone from the beginning, you can do a lot of things, and it's definitely better than Castle, but I would probably put it like front A tier here. I don't think it's quite S tier as a town, as the units you get and how well those units will do in a final battle. I mean, unless it's other than Nyxes, you pretty much don't care about anything in the final battles as Cove, in all honesty. To follow it up though, we have Dungeon. Dungeon right now at least is by far the best town in the game. I would say probably S tier. It's like Dungeon right now is basically Castle from H version, pretty much. You have Deemer, who is probably the best hero in the game. I mean, Meteor Showers are very cheap to use, so you can use them along with full control almost every turn. You can do a lot of fights early on that you shouldn't normally be able to. Then what's most important is that you actually have a double vortex from the beginning, especially if you get Earth Magic and you can teleport in between towns very easily. This dungeon makes it extremely overpowered because you're gonna sit with 100 plus mana on like day 5 or day 6 of the game and just full control everywhere. I've seen people be in my biome with dungeon like 133, 134 pretty much, multiple times in a row even. So dungeon is probably the highest tempo town right now in the game by far. And it's also pretty good in the late game. You can even go for Black Dragons, which a lot of people don't, but they're extremely overpowered because they're immune to everything, right? They're they're really good creatures overall. And then obviously you have scorpions, you have minotaurs that are really easy to get with double portal of summoning. There's just so many good things about dungeon right now. And obviously the best hero there is going to be Deemer. Nobody really plays anything else. I mean, Deemer is extremely strong and potentially the strongest mage in the game. I actually think it's something like Deemer, then probably Solmir, then Eovashus. And they all have their own advantages, their own like strengths, but they're extremely close to each other. However, like, dungeon does have a downside, which is that if you don't find a lot of boxes, you might not get started on really quickly, which means that you will most likely play the entire game with just a lot of mana and spells. You don't really play the game with creatures, which could end up losing you some games if you end up fighting in middle like 1-3x and your opponent is, I don't know, let's say Conflux with like 200 elementals that are immune to spells, and then you just die, right? It depends a lot on the boxes you get, but you could have good games, you could have bad games, especially with so many artists now. Deemer almost always has 10 power, 10 knowledge, even on week 1. I've seen it before, so it's very strong for sure. Next up, we are going to have Fortress. Fortress has been very questionable, honestly. The thing is, first of all, the Mighty Gorgon boxes are removed completely. You cannot find them anymore. And I think that the Gorgon boxes are now limited to only 2 of them per biome, if I remember correctly. Therefore, Fortress, first of all, lost its main hero, Alkin. Alkin was all about finding those Gorgon boxes early on, doing a Utopia like on week 2 or week 3, then going straight Desert, going straight Bunker, right? That's how you used to play Fortress all the time. However, now, especially because it's a mage meta, so Alkin already is a might hero, it's not ideal. And then on top of that, you don't have the Gorgon boxes either. Fortress is quite a questionable pick. I don't think it's the worst pick yet, but I do think it's subpar, like bottom tier, pretty much from all the towns right now, which is kind of sad because it went from top tier, like pretty much S tier before, to, in my opinion, being a C tier town right now. And to explain why, it's simple. It doesn't have good mages either. It has Andra, but Andra is... he has expert intelligence, he has a specialty in intelligence, which is really good later on, but he doesn't start with fire or earth or anything like that. Not fire, sorry, earth or air. And in my opinion, it's actually kind of tough to get a perfect Andra as well, unless you build in Magic University in the bunker, which requires a lot of resources. So overall, Fortress is very expensive to play right now. You don't really have as much army anymore. And honestly, overall, even army-wise, like from boxes, I think every single Fortress game that I had, my opponent in week 3 had double my army or even higher than that, which was extremely difficult to play against. So yeah, this is my preference for Fortress. I don't think it's like the worst town. I don't think it's good either. It's in a dark place right now. I hope that it's gonna get better in future patches, but we'll see how that goes. Next up is going to be Inferno, which it's pretty much the same thing as Fortress, honestly, but I would actually consider it better. I'm gonna put Inferno in B tier. The main reason for that is going to be Inferno actually has very high potential from boxes. Their boxes didn't get nerfed at all this patch. You could literally have like 5 demon boxes on the road, which you can get them on week 1 or week 2 pretty much. Then you have full control and you just go into a Utopia or Desert on week 2. It happened before, I've seen it before, I did it before as well, so it's definitely a very high potential town right now. You get full control as well, which is amazing for Inferno. However, they don't have any might heroes that are very good right now. So that removed Marius and Naimos, which were pretty much the main choices for Inferno for a long time already. I mean, Fiona was also somewhat picked, I guess, but it's a questionable pick already. And this patch, I don't see anyone playing it. But yeah, they have Aiden, which again, just like Fortress, is a specialty in intelligence, gets intelligence from the beginning, but the problem is he starts with 1 knowledge. You really need to find knowledge in the bunker, or you need to find a knowledge artifact. Which means that Inferno basically is not the greatest town, but it's not that bad either. As I said, if you get good boxes, it's pretty consistent to do either both Utopias on week 2 or maybe even Break Desert on like late week 2 or 131, and decent overall, decent town. However, as I said, you pretty much are forced into playing either Aiden, trying to get a lot of knowledge and control early on and intelligence, or you're basically forced to high roll a knowledge artifact and play Might Heroes. In which case it's actually better, honestly. Like, Might Heroes for Inferno alone are actually better than almost any other town right now. Next up, we have Necropolis. Necropolis, and this might surprise a lot of people, in my opinion is one of the best towns in the game right now. I'm actually not going to place it on S tier quite yet, but I do think it's top A tier, honestly, because Vamp Lords are extremely broken with full control. You can get Vamp Lords on week 1. I actually had Vamp Lords on 112 and 114 multiple games from like hill forts or just building them. If you find gems and crystals on the road, you're set. And with Vamp Lords early on, you can do almost any fight in the biome. Then on week 2, you pretty much have full control already. You can even buy it in the Magic University and you're set. And that is actually very, very strong. I've had games where I actually broke Desert with Necro multiple games in a row on week 2. Or like 131, and by like 135 I was at my opponent biome already with 30 all stats and just completely destroying them. I actually had 2 games against Gluehammer as well, with him playing Castle and me playing Necro, and he didn't stand a chance. Like, I was in Desert way before him, and I already had stats, I had everything there. So Necro is actually one of the strongest towns in my opinion. And on top of that, it's very consistent. This is why it's so high up. I think Necro right now is very, very consistent. You can almost guaranteed get a break on 131, get a break on like 131 to 135 maybe if you relate a little bit. But it needs almost no boxes. You just have to find like one vampire dwelling or one vampire box and you're set. And that's amazing. That's amazing for having a good town here. And yeah, it's going to be pretty much A tier here. I mean, it's one of the towns that I actually really like playing in this version, and I hope a lot of you actually enjoy it as well, because I think it's a lot of fun. Next up is going to be Rampart. Rampart, honestly, I think it's bottom tier. I actually think it's the worst town in this patch by far. Because, first of all, the only hero that you can really play is Eleshar. He's expert intelligence, but the thing is, Rampart was already really, really bad before. Like, Rampart was probably one of the bottom tier towns in Age version, and they gained nothing this patch. I mean, other than having Eleshar as a good, decent intelligence hero, so you have a lot of mana from the beginning, their boxes are still the same, they're not really good, and overall the tempo that you have with the town is not amazing. If you find Grand Elf boxes, they don't help you in Utopias, they don't help you with bad breaks like, I don't know, Gold Dragons or whatever, Phoenixes maybe, because they all die, then you can't do anything in the desert, and you're pretty much forced into finding either like 5 Silver Pegasi boxes or like 2 or 3 boxes, so you can do early Utopias, you can do the early desert fights as well. And that almost never happens. It requires an insane amount of high roll to actually play Rampart, in my opinion, in the first place. Then their heroes are not amazing. As I said, they only have Eleshar, but he doesn't start with any magic, schools of magic, so it's a bad town. I don't think there's much to do with Rampart in the first place, and I really hope that it's gonna get better again. This is just like Fortress. Fortress, it fell down a lot, but Rampart just stayed the same. It's just bottom tier and nobody really wants to play it. I mean, so far I don't think I've won a single Rampart game, and all my opponents lost with Rampart as well. So it doesn't seem good at all. And then we have Stronghold. Stronghold, and again, this might surprise people, but I actually think it's somewhere around B tier. I would say it's equal to Inferno. I wouldn't really put these any higher than the other. The reason for this is because Stronghold right now has a lot of potential in terms of interference. It's one of the only towns, actually Rampart with Euphratin has interference as well, but it's not a mage and it's really not good. But yeah, Stronghold right now at least has a lot of heroes with interference. You mostly play Krelion, which is a might hero with interference, or you play Sorug, because you can get water magic on Sorog as well, since she's a mage. And water magic plus Behemoth, obviously, with teleport, with expert prayer is amazing, so that's pretty good. But one of the things in I version was that Stronghold lost one of the Behemoth dwellings. They only have 2 out of 3 now. They're a lot harder to find as well. It's not really amazing to go into Behemoths, and they took a heavy nerf. I mean, if the Behemoth nerf wasn't there, Behemoths don't exactly have a way to deal with, so Stronghold would probably be S tier even, or at least top A tier here. But yeah, with those only 2 Behemoth dwellings, I do think Stronghold is B tier at best, and it's not amazing to play it. If you don't high roll a proper knowledge arty, a proper helmet, or a tabard or something, you're basically stuck having no knowledge the entire game. Your opponent is gonna have way higher tempo. Then you also need to find ogre boxes, you need to find rock boxes. If you don't, you're kind of screwed, because then you have no army on top of it, and it's not great. But it has a lot of potential if you do get to the late game. Because of interference, in the final fights you're actually going to have a huge advantage in comparison to most other heroes in the game. Therefore, Stronghold is good late game. It's not good early game, in my opinion. If you fight before week 4, you're most likely gonna lose almost every single time, especially if you don't have good stats and so on. But it has potential. It definitely has more potential than Fortress, in my opinion, because you can still go into Behemoths. You still have a lot of rocks. You can even high roll a lot of rock boxes. I mean, if you get like 100 rocks on week 3, you just steamroll the map. So there's potential, just not enough. And to finish it off, we all waited for this. At least I did. We have Tower. Tower, honestly, I would say by far second best town in the game. Reason for that is they have the second best hero in the game, which is going to be Eovashus. Sorry, Solmir. I was looking at Cove. They have Solmir, and he's an expert in Chain Lightnings, which is the actual only hero in the game that on equal spell power or even less spell power can still one-tap the summons, the air elemental summons coming out. And this is a huge deal for how the final battles actually go into I version, because most people just summon elementals. They just simply summon elementals if they have more mana, and there's nothing you can do unless you have Solmir, because those elementals will survive without the air orb. Therefore, having Solmir as a potential choice for the final fight there is amazing already, because you completely remove the option to summon elementals from the fight, and that means that your opponent has to heavily outnumber you in army. Then on top of that, you have amazing tempo. I've been in Desert 131 to like 133 with Solmir almost every single game so far, and I think I've actually played like 10 times already for Tower. So it's extremely consistent. You have chains from the beginning, so you don't even need to find the Tome of Air. You take away the summons as well, then genies are actually amazing. You can get up to like 150 or 100 genies on week 3 even, which is an insane power stack. That's one of the best power stacks that you could have in the game on early on. They can buff themselves as well. You have speed prior most of the time. They're super quick. They're good for Utopias even. I've been doing Utopias on week 2 even on genies. So Tower is definitely very, very, very strong right now. And the only reason why Tower isn't better than Dungeon is because Dungeon has access to the double vortex. Though if the matchup is actually going to be between Dungeon and Tower, I actually think Tower will prevail. Tower is actually better than Dungeon in a 1v1 scenario. Therefore, these two are very close apart. I do think Conflux, while not in S tier completely, should be higher up than Necro. I mean, it's somewhere either here, top A tier, or basically up, like bottom S tier here. And other than this, I think the tier list is pretty much completed. And yeah, as I said, this is my personal preference. This is how I would rank these towns after playing them a bunch of times. I think every single town I've played here at least 2 or 3 times already. And some of them, like Tower, like Castle, like Necro, I think I have over 5 games, maybe even 10 games with by now. So it's pretty good. Definitely, a lot of these towns have higher potential, and I would say at the same time these towns completely changed the balance between H version and I version as well, I mean, in I version you just have like castle, fortress, stronghold, and then these would be like bottom tier. So the meta shifted for sure a lot. Obviously everyone's playing mages, so the towns that have better mages win, and so on. But yeah, this, as I said, was a part 1. I'm hoping to make a part 2 about all the heroes for each of these towns that are used in JO and try to rank them as well. But that's going to come out in a few days. I hope to see you guys there as well. And yeah, as I said, let me know in the comments below what you think is best here, what your personal preferences are, what you prefer to play in every game, maybe even heroes if you want to help me out in my new video, and so on. And that's all. If you want to see me live, catch me live, I'm streaming every day. I'm going to put a link down below in the comment section and probably in the description as well. And that's pretty much it. Thank you for watching. I'll see you live or in the next video. Bye.